Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, July 5th, 2022 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can we all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I don't have any announcements this evening, other than I hope everybody had a pleasant and safe 4th of July. Is there anybody here for anything that's not currently posted on our agenda? Seeing as none, as we only have 3 members of the Board of Selectmen here, I would propose that we pass over agenda item number 1, which is the Board of Selectmen reorganization.
Makes good sense to me.
Anyone object?
No, but at some time you need to address it because it's policy that you're supposed to have it done.
Agreed. So hopefully our next meeting, we will have a full board, and if not, we'll just have to move forward.
You're going to have to do it. You can't keep pushing it down the road.
Understood. All right. So as the poll petition is published for 7/10, would it make sense to pass over that and go into the ARPA discussion and back into the poll petition, or can we just do it earlier?
Just a thought on that. I know we have some volunteers here to discuss items later on in the agenda. I wonder if we should just bounce to transfer station fees
Yeah,
in the interest
The
of...
ARPA fund might be a little
a
long-winded.
little longer. All right, so why don't we go into the transfer station fees and possible votes? Which is number 3, and we have folks here from the transfer station.
Right, yep.
Sure. Come on up.
Sure. Just give you the comfy chair, buddy. So the situation at the transfer station is as such. Retained earnings have been depleted. And we voted unanimously to increase sticker prices. Unfortunately substantial, but reluctantly, there's no more money there. So in order to sustain and pay for the transfer station operational costs, we need to increase revenue. And the only way to increase revenue there is increase sticker price. And then at some point, I guess we were told we had to come here and tell you guys. So here we are. In 2015, we decreased sticker prices, not by a lot, by like $20, because there was substantial amounts in there. So the board at the time thought it would make sense to reward those patrons of the transfer station with a reduced price. Really last year, 21 is when we really should have increased sticker prices, but somehow we missed that. And here we are. Can't go back, so. But we, in 21, we had to borrow, I think, $90,000 from the enterprise fund. Back in 2020, we had a pretty good amount in there, and we started a lot of talks about doing some upgrades down there. And Dick's been really doing a lot of research at such to add a couple more packers to the recycling, less trips over the road, if we could pack plastics and cardboard. This year we were more in line for making a move on something like that, but then this year we had to shell out, it looks like 125 out of the retained earnings to offset the expenses, which obviously is pretty sizable. So there goes our incentives for packers and for doing some of these other projects down there. But that's the situation we're in.
Understood. So when you're looking at going from...
I don't actually have that number in front of me, what the difference was, but I'm sure you guys do.
350.
350.
200 to 350, 100 to 240.
Right.
Yep,
That's a
sizable.
big hike.
Reluctantly, Dick's talked to some people down there, and I think the people are generally understanding of the situation. I think they understand that to do curbside is substantially more money, and even at this increased rate, they'd still be saving plus all the perks of the transfer station, the availability to throw things away that you aren't necessarily able to fit inside of one of those 3 by 3 by 4, 5 foot high dumpsters. And then the people seem to be not as, I was a little more fearful, but apparently we're getting pretty good feedback about it.
One thing we know, costs do go up. I know we went to a single payment plan.
Yep.
Is that continuing, or are we looking at?
I think we're still planning on doing that, just because the amount of labor intensive, 2 stickers twice a year was pretty intense. So I think they've done better with just the once a year, and I think people have generally settled into that. It is a chunk, you know, in one fell swoop, but I'm not sure.
How many of the stickers that we're selling, I mean, and I think we have it broken down somewhere, are, what percentages
1,299.
are seniors?
Oh, our seniors, I don't know.
It's pretty much like this year. Seniors were 547,
And how many are regular?
752.
752.
Those are the numbers in the budget that pretty much reflect this year also.
Because, I mean, that, a sizable hike to the seniors is the one that kind of sticks with me.
Well, I have a couple different questions.
Shoot.
I'm going to take them out of order out of my own head. On a commercial user, because you do have them that go in there, how do you monitor that? Yeah, you do. I've seen them in there.
Well, all right, so we're not supposed to have commercial users, so
Right.
saying that we do and then us saying that we shouldn't, we can argue that point, but that's
Yeah.
futile. I'd say we're not supposed to, and they're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
We've been getting way better, and the guys that work up there work diligently at trying to improve the transfer station, improve the operation, and turn away people that abuse those privileges. I think they've done a really good job. So I don't know who you're seeing up there that's commercially using the place, but I would imagine that in my world, they are perhaps using the transfer station for their residential uses and then doing something else with their commercial business.
Ironically, I had a contractor within the last 6 days that suggested to me to do just that. Just take it to the town dump. That's what I do. I said, no, that's not what I do.
I would love to have their license plate number.
Well, it's not, I'm not up there to police it. I'm just asking you how you monitor it. And if you're saying you
As
monitor
best we
it,
can, sir.
you're gonna need to monitor it.
best we
So you answered that question for me, I guess.
I hope so.
The other question that I have would be for the town administrator. Under policy, who sets the fees on this? Is that the Board of Health, or is that go through the Board of Selectmen?
So as you know from the written opinion from town council, the Board of Health controls all of the operations, the structure of those operations, who works there. They are not exempt from the personnel bylaw, so I am still the appointing authority, and they still come under the personnel bylaw, because it's a department of the town. But all rates are set by the select board, no one else. So you set building fees and other charges and fees of the town.
Who oversees the enterprise fund?
Well, that means it's both, right? Because you're
The
largely
only
in
reason
charge
I-
of the revenue side, and the expense side of the budget, the implementation of the budget would be the board.
The only reason I'm asking the questions like this is that somewhere along the line, it seemed like there was a little disconnect, and whether or not, and I don't follow the fees, I have no idea, my wife buys the ticket. I don't know what it is. So anyways, if we lowered the fee and then we didn't raise the fee, and now, obviously, it's probably the going rate, I'm not arguing that point, it's the shock factor of jumping from 200 to 350, from 200 to, 100 to 240, I'm sorry. I happen to be sitting in the administrator's office, and one of our senior residents came in and questioned us, and actually kind of embarrassed that they get that question without even knowing anything about it. So, and that's what's prompting these questions that I'm coming out with.
Understood?
Is there anything that prevents us from commercial use of the transfer station where we could charge?
They set the policy, so that's, to go back to what Matt said, so.
We've talked about those type of situations and even out-of-town usage, increased sticker price for non-residents. Other towns have offered that. And we just thought that those type of things just get harder to police. People do abuse it. I'm sure there's still people out there that collect for multiple households, not just theirs. And we've talked about doing the paper bag scenario as well, going that route. We've talked about a lot of these things. I think we've settled back on the sticker price because we enjoy the freedom of offering that sticker price. It's very different if you have to pay for a yellow bag and you only get 3 per week. The amount of trash, you can't clean out your garage or your shed, and we do offer those type of things where you can clean out something. In fact, if you are a paying sticker member, you can dismantle an entire shed and effectively throw it away there if that's what you want to do with your shed, but certainly don't encourage those type of things all the time. But the availability of that would go away, depending on what more we offer and how far out we reach it. Commercial use, I think we've discussed that briefly, but we've tended to stay away for the sheer problems with policing that. We have 2 to 3 employees up there every day that it's working. One guy's in the booth, one guy's down below. They monitor as best they can. They question people who seem to bring in, questionably large loads on a regular basis. The same guys are always there. They tend to notice those things. And I think they've done a good job in the last 10 years, a really good job in the last 10 years of limiting those abuses of the service. As far as anything else goes, I'd be certainly not opposed to bringing that up in discussion with the board. Commercial use, out-of-town use, that would be this board's recommendation.
Do you,
However, understand that policing those type of situations gets complicated and much harder for the individuals that are working down.
okay. Quick question, do you allow stickers on box trucks?
I'm not sure. I think
Just something you may want to
I
pay
would imagine
attention
we
to.
don't allow stickers on commercial vehicles. I think it has to be a residential vehicle. I'm not sure. I think if it has a sticker, I don't know what exactly the rules are of what you're allowed to sticker. Do you know?
We aren't asking for a picture of the vehicle,
No, we're not. We're
so
not.
how would you know?
Right, we're not asking for a picture. I would
What
imagine.
you're asked to bring in is registration number, and
Yeah,
that's,
so if you came in with a box truck, it's going to say box truck on the registration. So it.
We could
so wait,
exaggerate, say
by-
18.
By your answers, you're telling me that you don't pay attention to the registration, and I'm not saying it for anything negative, but that's something you may want to consider looking at. That's all. I'm not trying to give you a hard time about it, but
oh, no, I understand.
he said he picked out a period of over the last 10 years, and I know I personally seen box trucks in there over the last 10 years, which I was surprised that they were in there, but
Me too.
that, I took all your tonnage for last year out of the annual report. It averages, out of your 1,299 people, it averages 1.16 tons or 46 pounds a week per sticker. It's getting a little carried away with the math, but I was just curious, because if it came back and it was only 15 pounds, then it is kind of a mute subject.
Well, I would,
so- I personally throw away one bag, literally one bag a week.
so
And
we-
there's a lot of seniors that do the same thing, and it's kind of a hefty price for them to pay.
I tend to hope in the goodness of other people and the fact that people just won't over-abuse a good thing, and to the effect that they would know that, you abuse a good thing goes away. Now, yeah, box trucks, I wouldn't want to think that box trucks would be the vehicle that they chose to sticker. The situation may be such that they allow a resident to sticker a box truck if their only other vehicle is a Fiat, and they don't want to bring trash to the dump in that. Then perhaps the box truck would be okay. Now, again, I'd go to the genuine nature of people and hope that they would not abuse that situation by bringing, a box truck full of trash. But, you know what, there's people out there that abuse everything, so
No, you present the opportunity and it happens.
I'm not sure I
Is what it comes
I
down
can
to.
answer much better than that. But I hope that the guys down there are on top of that, and I guarantee that if people are caught abusing the system, that their stickers are revoked in there. I mean, I don't think we have per se a blacklist, but I would be reluctant to sell somebody a sticker who abused the system in the past. And I'm sure the board would agree.
I'm there pretty frequently, usually twice in 2 different days a week. And I don't ever recall seeing a box truck there. It could be, because I'm not there full-time, but I just don't recall seeing it.
I'm never there, and I just happened to drive by and seen them there, so.
Yeah, today I saw a
can't tell you
vehicle,
when they were there.
a pickup truck with a commercial name on the side, but if you said something to the guy would say, "This is home trash," and what are you gonna say?
You can tell just by
You're a liar?
observation, if the guy's in there every week, he's replacing his deck, then obviously
Yeah.
it's, it could be an issue, so.
I-
If nothing else, just bringing it to your attention, something to pay attention to. So
Thank you very much.
If you're taking it as an aggression toward you, it's not. It's,
Not at all.
we're all here for the same purpose, is to try to reel this in, and get it under control for the other residents in town.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
I hear you.
We do have a cost reduction that we would like to pursue with you sometime.
I like the idea of cost reduction.
Yeah, we've been trying.
I have a question, and I think it would go towards you, Matt, and potentially the finance director. Is we have ARPA funding. Can that be used to offset this deficit this year so we can slowly introduce a rate increase that's not quite a large sticker shock?
Yeah.
So my answer is I don't know. I don't think I've read anywhere where ongoing operating costs are an acceptable use of ARPA. But there's a revenue replacement component to it. But the revenue loss has to have been driven by the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So here, the revenue loss is a trend where we used to sell recyclables for money and makes a little bit of money back, and now it's costing the town
Yep.
money to haul recyclables, and a lot of those recyclables aren't recycled at all. They're crushed and used for cover material at landfills. So that's all the glass. There's no such thing as recycling glass. It doesn't happen. It's a myth. Don't believe it. It's sand, and it gets put on top of landfills. Is there, may I ask a couple of questions, or are you done?
Yeah, please.
Because I don't want to interrupt you. Is there any product in the recycling market right now that is still profitable for municipalities or states? Metal?
We get a little bit of money back for metal, but it costs more to haul it than what we get back.
Courtesy of fuel.
Well,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
all the rest of it, you just pay out hauling.
Yeah, the last
At
2
least the
years.
metal, you get a little back.
Right. The
Not
last 2 years
much.
have been horrible for recycling. And now gas prices are ridiculous, so that doesn't help any of those. More trips over the road cost more money.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, in their defense, the next sticker doesn't come out until February, correct? So they're giving us
Right.
plenty of notice in order to prepare for that. We also could take it as an opportunity to maybe everybody involved trying to come up with a way to try to curb that cost a little bit. But if nothing's done, that's what the cost is going to be as of today's figures.
Yeah, so it's an
So-
unfortunate thing, but if you look at what local haulers are charging for at home, it's effectively double what the sticker price is. Even at the end result of the frustrated transfer patron, I mean, if they are that upset with the services down there and the price of the sticker, then they may be surprised at what they end up paying curbside.
I had a couple more questions. What is the pattern of hauling? So is it on a schedule so that they're coming once a week to pick up, or they just come when you're full?
No, the guys got it down to a pretty good science. We monitor the tonnage. For the most part, we stay pretty high, I think above 7 or 8 tons, maybe 9, 10 tons at some loads. So we try to stay on the higher end of the per tonnage per load to go over the road, but they try to time it. They really have to time it with the holidays, with the weekends. You know, we're only open Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so they try to run one packer till it's full for the most part, and then if it gets busy, they'll open the other one, monitor that one packer, try to get that one packed up so that they can have an empty one going into the weekend or a holiday or something. It's certainly a science. Every once in a while, we get one that reads like 5 or 6 ton. It doesn't happen often. Normally, we're up in around 9 or 10 ton, I would say. I don't have the tonnage sheet in front of me at all. I'm just going by memory of previous, you know, meetings and such. But we stay pretty on top of the tonnages. And like I said, with those guys up there, one in particular, Dick, he's really sort of headed the operation the last few years up there. He's done a really good job.
So to summarize your answer, Mr. Chairman,
Long-winded.
it is an on-demand hauling,
Yes.
but the staff tries to make it as evenly spaced. Because my next question is there any period during the year when the pace of hauling is faster than the rest of it? So when is that? Christmas?
Yeah, Amazon boxes. Lots of cardboard and trash. That's a busy one.
It's actually a good sign. Because if it was the summer and we had worries about commercial activity, it would be the summertime that would be the busiest. So if you're purely residential, holidays will pick up. But if you have the people putting wallboard and other detritus in there from construction sites, it would be during the construction season.
Yeah, if you have a consistent flow when you reach your 7 to 10 tons, if it's
Yeah.
consistent.
I
Has-
think the people abusing the system are dwindling. I think we're getting better at that.
Have you priced the cost of a contract for a municipal service versus individual private service?
I can't answer that question. I would imagine.
Would you mind, Mr. Chairman, if we asked them to do that research? So go back even to your existing hauler and say, what would the price per household be if the town ran it as a municipal service as opposed to a fee-for-service for the individual homeowner? Because the devil's in the details in the trash hauling business, so don't ask me why I know so much about this. A couple of pitchers of beer would be necessary, but it would depend on how many trucks they could run through the town and be full at what point in the day as to what their economics would be. So right now, it's however many dollars a week, but it's because I got this house and then I skip 5 houses and I pick up another one.
Yeah.
They're going to charge, those services are charging you based on what they're able to haul away. But if they have a higher volume and they're using their trucks efficiently, you can negotiate price with them. And this particular service is exempt from Chapter 30B procurement. So you can roll your sleeves up and have a brass knuckle negotiation with, then that's the only kind of negotiation with a trash hauler.
Let me ask with that though, what would be if someone didn't want the municipal trash service, what do they do?
You're on your own.
Just
That's,
like if they don't use the transfer station now, they would get their own
Yeah.
curbside.
I actually think it'd be probably too expensive. But in order to come back to the public and ask for a 140% increase on their sticker, it would be good to just knock it down and say, we researched that as well, and it was either was not or an efficient answer.
I think not only would it come back higher than that, but I think, well, I know you would lose a lot. You would lose a lot of the services. It might be easier to recycle. It's single stream a lot of times. But I mean, you wouldn't be able to dismantle your shed if you had to.
Yeah, well, and the other
Throw a
piece
couch
to
away.
it, the other piece to it too is you may have vacant lots that just start to miraculously grow mattresses and what have you.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
that's a downside. You really have to be careful of, that you aren't taking what we do and dumping it on Department of Public Works
Yeah.
for pickup.
Now, Corey mentioned the freedom piece to this. I think the recycling center is a tremendous asset and a valuable thing for anyone living in town. But having said that, we probably should do due diligence there. The enterprise fund you said is dwindled, there's nothing there?
There may be some, but we wanted to do some projects down there in the last 2 years, have hit pretty hard, I think, as far as that goes, and I didn't quite realize, I knew this year was bad, I didn't realize last year was also so bad. Yeah, it's too bad, because we were really hoping to add a couple packers and do some things down there to save some money in recyclables, the way that recycling is, but.
If you want us to look at one hauler dealing with the town, then we would have to define what that is, because I don't think it's as simple as it sounds. Right now, I think there are 4 trucking groups. They don't just deal with Douglas. If something is nearby on the route, then they'll take that in, even if it's another town. So we would have to define specifically what we're asking them to do.
One last note, if I may, Mr. Chairman. This is definitely a textbook example of why municipalities and select boards in particular need to pass policies, financial policies. Because there shouldn't be any board in town that runs their operation on a 40% take out of retained earnings. That should trigger additional analysis by the Finance Committee as we approach town meeting. Because this started off and ran in a nice healthy pace when it was between 15% and maybe 20% of the budget was just retained earnings. And there was some hope that maybe you could replenish that or that'd be partially offset. But when you started to get to fiscal 20 and you're starting to take, and then you doubled in fiscal 21, that's clear indication that retained earnings will be zero and you're going to fall off a cliff. And this is not the only entity in the town that has a business-like operation. So water and sewer are in the same situation. Cable is similar but not the same. But we have other entities in the town that use retained earnings to supplement operations. And it's only a matter of time before it gets drawn down if there's no source to replace it. So the situation is unfortunate. You need a solution because it has to support itself.
Just one final thought, if I could. I've spent several days at the transfer station recently asking people if they had heard the sticker price was going up. The universal answer was no. So I tell them what it's going to be, and they're saying, okay. I mean, quite literally, okay, we understand. And I have yet, they shoot me, and they're saying, no, not a big deal.
So we voted unanimously to increase sticker prices, 2 weeks ago, effective immediately. Not, obviously, anybody who bought the sticker is good for the year, but it would be for new residents of Douglas moving in, buying transfer station, who haven't bought it yet, for whatever reason. Those would be, prorated and rated at that new number. So so I don't know what the next steps are, but we did vote to do that and for people moving into town. So depending on what your decision is here tonight, that would change for people who come in and buy them. I don't know if somebody else has already bought one, if like last week, if somebody came in and bought a sticker, I have no idea. It's possible. And if they did so, I would imagine they did so at this number, but maybe not. I don't know how long it's been that we knew that we had to approach this board with this, but things to think about, that's all. It's inevitable, so I guess the piece that we're missing here, we need to do a little research and find out what the price per resident would be if it was a municipality contract for approximately 1,200 residents or something. The number that we currently sell stickers for would be the estimate. That's the only piece of information we're missing.
No, you're going to look at the number of households, so you're going to interact with the town clerk. It's going to be a lot more than 1,200.
So we're not looking at just possible sticker, but we're looking at the entire
The town.
the whole town. There we go.
Door to door, curbside pickup.
What would the price be?
Would it be run by the contractor? would
It could be
Board of
some.
Health run it?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So you have a variety of different options,
Oh, yeah.
right? You could be charged for bins, and then they use the robot, so it's the one-armed bandit and one person driving the truck. You have two people on the truck with whatever bin people want to put out. All those options have different prices associated with them.
So I would imagine we're gonna come back then with a range per person, per household, because they're gonna want that number of how many people actually utilize the transfer station. They're gonna want a total resident number.
Yep.
And then we're gonna wanna know all these different options. So we're gonna have a range. It could be like, well, it depends, 500 to 1,000 per person. That could be the range that BP gets back to us with. I have no idea. I'm just shooting numbers, but it sounds to be like we haven't really funneled any options. It's very, very broad, which means they're going to come back with, well, you don't have any, I mean, but like you say, they do this with other towns, so this is not like a strange thing, so it's certainly something that they probably have an algorithm for. If that's what we need, that's what we need.
It could be more fruitful to have a conversation about the use of ARPA funds if it was for a one-time expense like bins. You might get further with that because you're improving a service, you're extending a service, and it's a one-time expenditure. Still not optimistic.
You say for bins?
For bins.
Okay, yeah.
I'm still not overly optimistic about it because the nature of it's municipal service. It wasn't something we had contemplated during the pandemic. It's not a response to the pandemic, but within the boundaries of revenue replacement, it might be possible to do it. Because that one-armed bandit tends to be substantially less expensive than traditional garbage pickup. So that's the benefit of it. But it's always the choking point, whether it's Fall River or anybody else who's ever dealt with this issue, is that initial expense of purchasing bins is very high. They're not cheap.
All right.
So you do need a vote, though. You set the rate, so.
One more comment before we vote. Because we're faced with the 140% increase, it's our responsibility to at least explore all these options, so we're fair to the users. That's all this is about, nothing else. Not saying anybody's doing a bad job or anything else. It's just, we have to do it. It's a responsibility that you guys have and we have. I would like a little more input into it before we voted to raise the rate to just jump up myself. I don't know. Unless you want to.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, name and address.
Fred Fontaine, Charles Street. Have you considered that when you raise the prices, you're going to lose, for lack of a better word, a lot of customers to private haulers? You're going to lose a good percentage. I know I pay $420 a year for private, so if I was moving into town and I compared $420 or $350, I'm going to choose private. So I know when I raise prices on my business, if I lose more than 12% of my customers, then it's pretty much a wash. So you might end up raising the price and have be in the same situation you have now.
So, yeah, I brought that up at the last Board of Health meeting when we were doing this, because, that was a concern of mine, doubling the price. It is a sticker shock, and people aren't going to like it. And I said, we're going to lose some people. And the response I convinced myself with it being okay was, number one, it's a rock and a hard place. There's not a lot of other options. If we're going to maintain a transfer station, we can't be negative 124,000 again. So the only option is to increase sticker price. If we're going to maintain a transfer station, I was under the assumption that maintaining the transfer station was something that was overarchingly wanted by all parties. If that's not the case, then that's not the case. But under that impression, my thought was, yeah, we might lose some people. They're going to end up paying 100 to 200 more for a curbside service if that's what they want to do, and they're going to lose a lot of the perks of the transfer station. So if you're going to trade, I guess, for $100, $200 more, pay more money, get less benefits, but be a little more convenient, just dragging it out to the end of your driveway, and then I guess we're going to lose some people. I mean, I don't really know how to combat that. I would hope that people would understand the convenience and the necessity and the lack of an increase in sticker price to help residents over the last 7 years. But I'm sure some people aren't going to care about all that. We're going to lose them.
But I think the biggest concern that drives a lot of it is, understand, it needed to happen. Unfortunately, it popped up at this point in time. The price of everything's going up. Like, I drive a diesel truck that sits in front of my house right now because gas prices went crazy. But I think it's a matter of due diligence is we at least have to give them some kind of an option. Like, I agree, I like the transfer station, I use it myself, I get rid of recycling. If I clean out my garage, I use one of the big dumpsters for metal. There's a lot of perks that go to it, but at some point, like I said, to me, I don't have a fixed income. Like, if I need more money, I can earn a little more money. My biggest concern is the seniors, that what they have is what they have, and an extra $140 to a senior citizen, that's a lot of money.
Because it all has to be paid at once.
Yeah.
Product substitution is rampant when the target market is price inelastic, right? So that's what's going to happen with some $111,000 worth of the revenue stream coming from those 547 people. You'll get, substitution in this case is what? Either I have somebody else haul it for me from my family and just use their sticker. I'll put it in a barrel out back and I'll burn it. Catch me if you can. I don't think very many people in Douglas are the dumping type. I would expect that more from young hooligans than I would from seniors. But I think in a previous meeting, we talked about the cost of electricity with tariff rates for the winter electric load being about 24.7 cents a kilowatt hour. And to heat your home, if number 2 heating fuel stays somewhere around diesel, it's $5.50 this week. So if you have a 300-gallon tank, it's a major investment if you're a senior. So it's not the $140. If that was the only thing that was going up, and the cost of everything else, food, fuel, electricity, was staying the same, it would be a hard case to say that you shouldn't raise the fee to make it balance budget. But when you have everything going up all at once, and then you say your only option for a sticker is to pay it all at once, to come in with your $240, that might be 1/5 of somebody's Social Security check for the month. So we're trying to be sensitive to the cumulative effect of all the things that people are facing, not just this one change. The sky's not going to fall because you went up $140. It's everything added up together.
So would it please the board if we offered seniors some sort of a payment plan or a biannual sticker price?
I think that would help them.
I would be reluctant to say to the average sticker price to do that, because I know the amount of work. Kristen can't do regular Board of Health stuff because she's sitting in front of the computer for a month and a half straight with people in and out. Now we're selling them at the transfer station as well. But if we're only offering that to seniors who need it, that might be, I don't think she would mind to help out some resident. And I'm sure a lot will just say, just get it over with, and I don't have to think about it till next March. But yeah, if it pleases the board, then I'm more than happy to bring that to Board of Health. And I'm sure there would be some means of doing that.
Logistically, though, that's probably tougher than, I appreciate the offer and I'm aware of it. I'm just, what do you give her, a senior a quarter of a sticker, and then the next quarterly payment, they get a half, right? You end up chasing administrative nightmares, I can see that.
Yeah, we'd end up chasing people like always. How we used to do it last time, do we do stickers twice a year?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what's your total revenue before the increase?
Total revenue before, we haven't increased anything yet, so I guess that would be.
You're right around 222, right?
222, 279.
And what's that, and you said you had $124,000 shortfall. So what's your increase going to bring you to?
I think Jean had figured out that that would even us out. That would zero us out.
350.
It's going to bring you to 350?
350. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the target.
Use retained earnings,
So it's in your packet, it's the last
355,
handout.
That's the target.
Should have looked at my tabs, huh, Lisa?
The projected revenue is 225.5. Projected expenses are 350, which leaves you 124.5 short, and that's what you're raising with the increase.
I think we've been undercharging for a few years here, right? And
Yeah, we should have went up in 2020 or 2021 for sure.
I think that raises as much concern as the increase is, how did we not see or feel this coming?
I don't know what happened. 2021, we should have seen that 90. That was a big one last year. Should have jumped on this a little quicker. I'd say 125 is a big one, and that's this year.
So if we vote on this tonight, this goes into effect immediately, correct?
It's a sticky wicket because the board out on its own authority thought they could do it, so they raised the fee. So however, since June,
No,
Yeah.
well, it's been posted in the window.
Well, it's posted everywhere.
Finance director has
Yeah,
a
Gene.
comment.
it was effective July 1st, that was the board's vote,
All right,
and that's why it was posted in the window. There was one person that came in today, and Kristen sold it at the old rate because this board hadn't met yet.
okay.
So, and to my knowledge, there's been,
No.
no resident has been charged a new rate.
So we don't have to worry about refunds in the event that it doesn't move forward.
So the wicket's not
Their
sticky at
vote was
all.
effective July 1st, June 30 was Thursday, today's July 1st. So the reason, part of the reason is the, couple things, and, you know, we've been talking about this for the last year and a half, 2 years, that this had to happen. The reason it's posted is to give people as much notice as possible. Because people live on a budget, so they need to plan accordingly. The other reason is because in an effort to set the tax rate, I have to make sure that the enterprise fund can support it. So before we can set the tax rate, the enterprise funds are both part of that recap. It has to be voted, so their DOR has to say, okay, we're going to get that revenue in to support the operating budget, so they can approve that. So as much notice as possible, one, to give the residents so they can plan accordingly, because it is only sold once a year, and I think when it was sold twice a year, they used to have different colors.
Yep.
So we sold in the fall and then the spring, and each season has its own color, so whoever's working the transfer station can say, oh, they need a new sticker, they're running on the old one. So those are the issues, but nothing has gone to, again, I think we had one resident coming today, and they were charged the old rate,
All right, and when are we setting the tax rate?
November.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I have a question. I don't know if Gene knows the answer. How many households qualify for the exemption?
I don't know the answer. That would come from the assessor's office, the paperwork.
You see where I'm going with this, right? If you already qualify for the exemption, you're clearly within the, you've self-identified and asked for the government to cut you a break because you have a certain income level in your home.
Right.
So if that database, depending on how big it is, might be your source of, and listen, if you have to cost shift that to the other 700 some odd people, then maybe so be it. But it gets, you have information, the government has information they can use to try to soften the blow on a narrow set of people that we're worried about.
So going back to my question, I asked about the revenue and stuff. So I see the budget is 355,000. What does the new increase generate for fees?
124.5.
Huh?
124.5. So assuming that retained
No,
earnings are
it's-
zero, you have to make up the entire gap with a revenue increase from it.
Okay, let me reword. So you have 1,299 people. Almost half of them are at 240, almost half of them are at 350, right? So that averages $295 per, on an average for the cost, times 1,300 people, about $390-something thousand. It's not 355. So I was just curious, are we planning, so we're budgeting for the following year with the rate increase?
What I heard, Mr. Chairman, what I heard this Board of Health say at their meeting was that there would be a slight, we'd be slightly over.
Yes.
Am I remembering that correctly?
Like with any budget, you have contingencies.
No, I know. So is it 10% over, or any idea, or
And I have 394 here.
390? So we're right on the same thing. So
Right.
394, and your budget's 355, so you're running about 10% over.
According to Excel, 6.7%.
Okay. Lack of a spreadsheet and a calculator.
Yeah.
Where everything, it's a concern, I'm just trying to rationalize what, we're making a
That's your
big jump, are
cushion.
we?
If you lose customers, that's your
Yeah.
cushion.
Okay.
Yeah.
6.7%.
If gas stops going up, if
Yeah.
any number of
Overrun.
things.
Yeah, and that's why we have these questions, so we can make it clear.
Now, there's no fuel rider in the new contract. And there's
No.
none in the old one.
No,
So when it was brought to me, I said, we're not paying the overage because there's no legal basis to pay it.
right,
Are we all on the same page with that?
yes.
And they are not going to attempt to charge us additional money next year for fuel changes either.
Well, it's a one-year contract, so next year they could rebid the contract, right?
They could.
Yeah.
So there's nothing stopping them from trying to get that into it.
But it's not there now.
That's correct.
There was an additional surcharge though for something. They came up with some sort of a means to charge a little.
These guys are struggling with insurance. Their workers' comp is typically through the roof, which is the overhead they're passing on, and the cost of replacing their trucks, which may be scarce, hard to find.
So historically speaking, and I know it's probably asking for weird data, but leave it to me to have weird data. Traditionally speaking, do you get a lot of new customers between July and March when the usual renewals happen?
No.
I don't have that data, but I generally
No.
think it's renew stickers.
Almost everyone you talk to renews in March,
Yep.
so
That's what I do.
therefore, the number is pretty low.
It's pretty low.
Yeah.
So there's, other than Gene needing to worry about the tax rate in November, obviously that needs to happen. Do we have time for you guys to actually get us some quotes on townwide curbside pickup, so at least there's an option there? So, I mean, if nothing comes back cheaper, we have no choice but to do this in order to be able to set our tax rate, right, Gene?
This is going to be an important piece, yes,
Yeah.
because the enterprise is a component of that.
So at least we can evaluate and look and say, okay, transfer station's gonna cost this, curbside pickup's gonna cost this, see what that delta looks like, before we actually move forward on setting a new rate, and considering, historically speaking, most people aren't buying stickers right now, they're waiting until March. So the only real pressing matter on this is to ensure that we can present a balanced, funded enterprise fund, so Gene can set the tax rate, or at least this component of it, for November,
And folks can have time to,
to prep for it.
especially seniors. If
Yes.
there's huge concern for seniors, then they would need more notice than less. I mean, the increase is inevitable, whether we do a municipality curbside or we increase the sticker. Regardless, it's gonna go up substantially. It's just how substantial and for who, I guess.
And then trying to monitor if we do a payment plan for seniors.
And I know a lot, so when we came back individual, 2 of the 3 companies had no senior discounts regardless.
But they're not.
By your board's suggestion of making it effective immediately, is that in hopes to try to supplement a little bit of the budget? No. So is there any benefit to doing it immediately?
Fiscal year, that was the rationale,
Start the new fiscal year with a new rate.
July. to June.
That makes sense.
But the permit cycle's in March or
Yes.
May or whatever it is.
March.
Right, but they're gonna need a number to prorate a new sticker holder. That's what's in flux right now, right?
We're not going to get away, or around this, I understand all that. I'm just asking these questions to put it all out there. So we're all on the same page as far as understanding it.
Yeah, things go up, things go down. Right, I love the flexibility and the freedom of the transfer station and the service that it's provided. Costs are high now, but you've been proven to knock them down when, I mean, we're not making a killing off this, obviously. But even when you knocked it down in 2015 or so, I mean, we're looking out for the permit holder considerably. So I like the independence personally of the transfer station and not being beholden to a for-profit trash hauling company. The other piece to it too is if the entire municipality moved to these bins, right, we have some pretty narrow rural roads, and those arms do not necessarily put things back where they found them. You
You
know,
can get a little kicker in the bottom.
right, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to, give one to Orange Street and Perry Street, all those way out there.
Yeah.
No, but again, it's our responsibility to explore all these different options just to make sure that we did our job, that's all.
Collectively, what do we figure we're at, guys?
A rock and a hard place?
Do we want to try and get some of that preliminary data, or does anybody feel comfortable saying, okay, it is what it is?
Yeah, I don't feel particularly rushed to do this. I just anticipate the homework not being very fruitful. But if,
I don't expect much of a change myself, but I think the effort needs to be put into it.
So with that, could we ask that you guys do some of the homework on what a town-wide curbside pickup would look like? I know it's a pain, I'm sorry.
Well, how can we say no?
You can, you've always
No.
got the right to say no.
I mean, it's probably going to be Kristen doing 99% of the research, so I suppose I can say yes for her. She might not like me saying yes for her,
If
so
it works for you, you can say yes.
3, 4, 5.
But I think-
People just pay
I look
attention.
at it less like that.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to need some of Matt's time.
I
to
can
find-
help you with this,
to
because
find
all
what
I've
we're
done is
talking about.
landfills and trash for 12 years.
Mr. Chairman.
Lots of bad people
You're our guy.
in
I'd
the
like to
way.
ask Matt's opinion. You think there's an urgency to vote on this tonight?
Well, there needs to be a rate that's charged when somebody comes in and looks for a sticker. So you do have to answer that question, because the board has made the Board of Health, your appointees have made a recommendation to you. So you would have to vote to set a rate that's effective to some point in the future, so that you at least set the stage for what it is.
Why don't we set the rate for March?
No, actually, I would, if you don't mind, I'd like to make a motion to accept the rate that they're proposing, with the understanding that we're going to look into it, and if we can make some future changes, then we will. But until then, based on the information that's been handed to us, we don't really have much choice. We're about 6.7% over their budget, according to
Excel.
Excel or whoever it is that he used.
Is that a Microsoft product?
I don't know.
I reject that number.
It is. If I did math, we'd all be bankrupt.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a bias, so I can rely on it.
so, was that a motion?
Yes, it was.
All right, I'll second it.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
No, we made it up enough.
Anybody else want to pick on my company while we're at it? No?
No, or your former company?
Well, you can pick on them all day. All right. Motion's been made and seconded, no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
We have a potential cost reduction which will pay for itself in 2 years. And we would like to, at some point in time, have that discussion. it takes an upfront of about $40,000.
Can we put that on the next agenda?
Sure.
Does that work for you?
I'm a member of the committee of two.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, could we ask this gentleman to share that with the town administrator in advance of the next meeting?
Yes, please, and thank you.
Okay?
Does that work?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we can put possible discussion regarding cost reduction at transfers.
Oh, no, we'll have a discussion, we just don't know possible votes.
It's all possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
All right. Now
You'll be
we're
hearing from us.
Back to the polls.
back to the polls. We have a poll petition for 184 West Street and possible votes. Sorry about that. That was supposed to be a quick discussion. I guess that's a relative term. All right, so we have a city of install a new mid-span pole 6450 for service to new house located at 184 West.
Michael Frazier, National Grid. Exactly what you just said. We're proposing to install a new mid-span pole, 64 and a half, for service to a new house located at 184 West Street.
Is there any of the butters or anybody here to talk regarding this poll petition?
Nobody got a question?
What is that? You want me to read the poll petition?
No.
We should open the hearing.
Is that a guide wire support that's on the back of that pole on the little picture?
Yes.
Is there an easement required with 7 Conservation Drive on that?
I think it was only, there was a sidewalk guide, so it's only a 5-foot lead, which kept it in the,
So it's not on their property?
No.
Yeah, so the answer is no. Okay.
I couldn't make it small enough and still visible.
Yeah.
To Tim's point, make a motion to open the public hearing regarding the poll petition,
Why didn't you tell me to be quiet?
because it doesn't open.
You made the motion?
I'm making the motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
John Furno just asked that it's 3 feet from the road. It's typically what he always says.
Do I re-ask my question?
It's already on record, but you can if you'd like to.
Oh, no, I don't need to, I'm just asking you.
All right. So that was the only request that John had, is 3 feet back from the road?
Yep.
Is there any other questions, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
No, thank you, Mr. Moss.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Bonner?
Seeing no one in the audience is concerned about this, I'm not either.
Want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing on the poll petition referencing plan number 30556636.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing
No.
as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We want to make a motion on approving the poll petition as presented in said public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Easy. Thank you.
We could have made that way harder.
You did, you didn't wait for about an hour.
For a quick discussion on,
You learned a lot about trash hauling.
He's getting paid.
And I thought that was going to be faster than the ARPA discussion.
oops. Speaking of which, ARPA discussion and possible votes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Administrator.
more handouts.
Yay. People that love trees are gonna start hating us with all this paper.
I'm going to write on the tabs. I noticed Tim's got some pretty snazzy tabs over there, too.
Yeah, I'm a tab believer.
So since this is not a rushed process, but it is very important, We continue to do research into what's eligible, what is not, what the parameters are. We have been directed by state officials, again, live one-on-one conversation, recorded. There's a video of this somewhere, of a chat in a webinar, and I'm asking the question, can we pay hazard pay for services rendered before March 30th, 2021? Direct answer from the state official in charge of the program, no, you cannot do that. And then 2 months later, Channel 10 in Providence runs a special story on the city of Fall River's paying everybody hazard pay. And it's millions of dollars. It's a city, it's a big labor force. So how in the world, why in the world would the mayor of Fall River take that risk? If it was all going to be disallowed, he'd have to pay it back. So obviously somebody's wrong somewhere. So the question to Mr. Zadelis was, can you explain to me what I saw in this story? Because not only is the city of Fall River doing it, but many other cities that are gateway cities that don't have big budgets to throw around on mistakes are doing it. Taunton, Brockton, New Bedford. So Mr. Zadelis' response is, well, whoever you were talking to at the state probably didn't understand your question or didn't answer what you were asking. Because it is allowed, and he provided 2 source documents. One is this firm, CLA, does a tremendous amount of consulting in the public sector. Of course, it's going to slip me now. Everybody's heard of their CLA bought a company that many municipalities use to do evaluation of all our capital assets. And it's going to escape me, but they have many, many years of experience. And then on top of that, there is a double-spaced typewritten opinion that comes out of
So they're not referring to it as hazard pay, they want to call it premium pay.
premium pay. And
This is,
final rules, excerpt from CLA. So there you have it. You can put it under this rubric and it fits. So that proposal needs to be worked into our chart, our grid of all the proposals made by the various department heads to include that premium pay conversation that we've been having with the public safety unions for starters. Now, the nice thing about the CLA document is it's very, very clear. The eligibility for eligible employees and eligible activities appear on page 2, 3, and 4 of that CLA PowerPoint document. It's actually all 2, 3, 4, and 5.
All we have to do is say that we were providing vital services to a tribe. Covered.
If we were a state where we were providing services to a recognized tribe. But here, it's everything else on the list, all of which, first responders, hospital workers, sanitation, maintenance, grocery stores, pharmacy, all the things, all those activities are eligible for premium pay. So that's back on the table. It's another cost item for your consideration. The rest of the list you have, I think, what we talked about last time was trying to get some guidance from the board on how much analysis do you want put behind these proposals, and just what is your general thought? Do you want to identify one single project and use almost all of your ARPA allocation to do it because it releases X amount of cost savings or operational efficiency for the future? Or would you prefer, Selectman Bonan's used the term the Salvation Army approach, which is do lots of good for lots of people and spread it around in lots of different places? Because it's not raised from the tax base. It is ultimately taxpayer money, but really it is federal money, and it's not impacting people's local bills. So how do you want to use it? Because for me to take 15 or 20 proposals and then try to, rank them all and pros and cons for them all and pass it all on to you, it's kind of, I don't want to say fruitless activity, but it's not a high-yield activity. If you already have a strong thought in your head, well, I really just want to knock out one of these water projects, and all this other conversation is just fluff. So if the board is already independently reaching a consensus, why don't we just focus on getting one good project, get it spec'd out properly and get it done? If you want to spread it around in lots of places, then that pretty much caps what you would spend on any one idea, because you want to have that policy of spreading it around.
2.7, it's going to go quick no matter what. There wasn't a bad proposal that we had heard, right?
Right.
So it's tricky. I do like the idea of spreading it around. I am cognizant, however, that it will only go so far, and it will take time and energy to wean that out and do it properly.
I'd like to see the premium pay. I'd like to see that pulled away from our ARPA number first, because I would like to see the people that volunteered and worked hard and through the whole pandemic actually get something a little extra for everything they did above and beyond. And I think the other one for me is I'd rather do a single project. Like if we can embed a good chunk of this into roads. We've spent a pretty good amount of money on a pavement survey. And then we still haven't really completely funded the highway department to be able to start doing anything with it. Because our Chapter 90 money is low, and I know it's in future budgets, it's moving forward. But I mean, every year that goes by, more snowplows come through, roads get into a little bit tougher shape, and that money grows, well, that cost grows exponentially. And I know the biggest thing that I hear from people all the time is roads are terrible. We gotta do something.
Roads are terrible everywhere, but.
So the way we'd have to do this, I don't think roads are eligible.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah,
interrupt
no,
you,
that's
but
fine.
I'll get ahead of you so I'm not interrupting.
Yeah.
Is use it for a project you know you have to do, and then the money you freed up locally in the budget process, capital process, you can put into roads. A direct allocation of ARPA funds for roadway projects, I don't think is going to be allowed.
We infuse the road budget anyways from the capital end of things. We did a matching, it went through town meeting and got approved, did a matching of the Chapter 90, that coupled with his pothole and crack filling and stuff, he's just shy of $1 million in that budget for road repairs. So it's, last year he kind of got hit with the Cedar Street Bridge, so it kind of deflated any repairs that he could have. But this year he has a decent budget to work with anyways. And moving forward, we actually put it in the 5-year plan under capital to try to keep that going. If we're going to do one project like that, we may want to consider looking at whether it's water or sewer going up, if we ever get to the point where we do something with these 3 different major departments that we're looking at fixing. If you do something with the highway bond, the police station, or whether the police station stays here or moves somewhere else, or the fire department, you're gonna need the sprinkler. You need to upgrade the water line going up there for one. The sewer line, Bob said it was what, $2 to $2.5 million to bring it up to the highway bond. We talked about it the last time. It's kind of a hard thing. The other thing we have is we all are still suffering from the effects of the great oil spill of 2021 or whatever it was. So we have 2 sleeping giants over at the school that are $140,000 a piece. So it's a very complicated thought process to figure it out. Getting back to your premium pay, I've said this to Matt in the past, and I don't remember if I said it here at one of our meetings, but the public safety people, personnel, prior to even knowing what we're dealing with, they were exposed to a lot, and I think that they should be compensated for that, because they didn't even know what they were going into after It's kind of you could have an argument after the fact, once we knew what was going on and they had the proper equipment to prepare themselves for what they were going into. But prior to that, everybody was exposed to a lot of stuff that they didn't know.
Just on that thought, the public safety, I mean, I've said it before, they're awesome, right? I mean, thank God they're there. But I know, Gene, you worked, right, in COVID times, right? You're breathing air, coming to work. I'm a little concerned about a fairness thing, because there were other people, you mentioned the food program, I think last time we discussed that. It just snowballs and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. That initial number that we saw, really, well, correct me if I'm wrong, about 500? 3?
2 and change.
2 and change.
Closer to 3 than 2.
Yeah.
Right. So some of your problems get solved by the steps to provide premium pay slide.
Yeah.
So those whose pay is exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act, not eligible. Right off the top, not eligible. So for those folks who we pay a management salary, they're not eligible for premium pay under the program. Unless you want to go through the task of doing a written justification. The trouble there is you might pay it, and then the Treasury comes back and says, no, he didn't convince us, so now you have to pay us back, which is a nightmare scenario that we want to avoid if we can. The other so an hourly pay, below 150% of the residing state or county's average annual wage for all occupations as defined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So there's actually a website you can go to. If you just type that into your Google search bar, you say average annual pay for all occupations, Worcester County or Massachusetts, you get a number. It's higher for the state as a whole than it is for Worcester County. 150% of the all occupations annual average is going to be right around $93,000. So it would have to be an hourly employee that earned less than $93,000. So that does kind of sweat some of the eligibility requirements out. The other part of it is direct, and I think it's on the following page. No, it was previous page. Essential work involves either regular in-person interactions with the public or coworkers or regular physical handling of items handled by the public or coworkers. So those who stepped up and helped with the food service program, so your cafeteria workers, your Teamster represented cafeteria workers, absolutely eligible. But for those of us who either worked from home or worked alone in an office, no. Wouldn't make it on that either. So we'd have to refine that proposal, but we started with public safety because that's the lion's share of it. So that gives you a sense of ballpark, that's what you're talking about. So even if, let's say it was 270 and you added 55 for people we hadn't thought of yet, call it 325. That's going to be a ballpark. It's not going to be 500 though. I think that would be too high an estimate. But I would say this, if it's the board's guidance that you want me to fully flesh that out, because it is a priority that then by the time of your next meeting or your first meeting in August, we could have that proposal completely fleshed out with a real solid number that we work out with the different unions. Just take that off the top of the 2.7 or whatever's left, 2.6, whatever's left.
I would like to at least identify it to put it to rest.
Same.
So it's just not out lingering there, because it's something that we need to address, whether we're going to do it or not do it. We should. come to that conclusion.
I like the idea of the oil tanks.
Well, there's different things that are out there. I have a little more exposure to it because of the capital end of things that I do, but there's a bunch of stuff out there that you can cherry pick. That's a big problem, the oil tanks. It's something that we need to figure out how we're gonna do it. And then the town administrator submitted for the phone system. That's an important system that we need. And the camera upgrades to the school, that's an important thing that we need to do, so.
I want seriously to consider that access road too. I think put up or shut up with that. It has to be a priority.
So in our discussions, Mr. Chairman, to Selectman Bonin's point, we've put this together in our minds as a package. That one without the other is not effective. So any security arrangements we want to do to enhance the campus include the necessity of at least connecting the two campuses with the road.
Good.
What I've asked the school committee to do is to start the conversation at their end. Where would they locate it? Because we don't want to upset cross-country or other activities where there's an active asset of the town being used. We want to be away from that if we could, but not if it substantially increases the cost of it. So we're not trying to build an Autobahn glass smooth road. We're just trying to get access.
Right.
You know, a stable gravel surface so emergency vehicles traverse back and forth. And that's well within doable.
And I think cross-country, I mean, just visualizing that, maybe they would run on the gravel for a couple hundred yards maybe, but that terrain changes depending on the trail that you have, so hopefully that's not that big of an obstacle.
I can honestly say I've not walked that part,
Yeah.
that area where the two driveways are fairly close to each other. I've not walked that, so I don't know. I know there's some wet terrain in there, and there's maybe some outcroppings, some ledge. I think when Mr. Cundiff priced this out, he had a specific location in mind. And we just have to figure out where that intersects with what the schools are using the property for.
All right. The premium paid number that you showed us, that was based off of what formula?
It was a very specific formula that was still subject to further refinement, but remember, it was from a date certain, ending at a date certain. All those who worked hours, and there was a flat hourly rate, I think it was $10 an hour, for the hours they worked from, I believe it was the beginning of President Trump's declaration of an emergency to the end of the first wave. And we had picked out a date where the caseload in Massachusetts and in Douglas was really low. That first initial spike in COVID cases, when we couldn't get PPE, or we could, but it was
Ridiculously high.
ridiculously expensive, or you had to use it more than once, blah, 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 and all of that.
Yeah.
And that's how we calculated that number. So the employee actually had to work hours, and the more hours they worked, the more premium pay they would get.
Yeah.
Our challenge was recruiting the staff to work that second ambulance and to do the extra.
No, I have no doubt. Yeah, it was a terrible time.
And I say that, and with all due respect to the state, they just gave everybody a flat number. So if you met an eligible requirement, you were a state employee, you got $3,000, regardless of how much you worked, how much you were exposed. That just doesn't strike me as a fair thing to do. Because I think we can clearly identify 2 or 3 people, especially on the ambulance side, who put in a lot of hours and got that ambulance on the road.
I'm just confirming the dates, because on the printout it says March 2021, but wouldn't it be March 2020?
Well, that's the eligibility discussion.
That's gone.
So that was the confusing date. So when the ARPA program was released and they tied the eligibility of the expenses to that date, and said you're not going to fund anything that happened before then, that's what prompted us to ask the question.
Okay.
So what about premium pay? Because for us, premium pay was definitely 2020. It was,
Right.
I think, Trump and Baker is a blur to me. I think it was something like March 19th of 2020.
Yeah, because it was right at St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Yeah,
And I think Baker was 4 or 5 days later.
yeah.
And then that next milestone was, I want to say, August, or right around August of 2020.
Okay.
So that's, I can get you the actual detailed date.
But on this, it says March 2021, which doesn't seem like
Right.
it's a crisis
So,
anymore.
but that's what led us to ask, can we pay people for activity before March of 2021?
Okay.
And it was the state official who, through all the gobbledygook, said no, but then all these communities started doing it. Clearly, the answer is not no.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've made a lot of conversation with our employees. We've gotten really detailed with them, so it's kind of disappointing when the state official said no,
Yeah,
right? So you didn't want to believe them.
right.
So what do we want to do?
If I may, Shirley Mazinski, 60 Oak Street. Has the rest of the board had all this conversation? I mean, when are you going to have a full board to decide?
That's the magic question.
That genuinely has been the magic question.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that we'll have a full board, barring anybody gets COVID, sick, travels. I know my travel schedule is done as of, well, I leave Thursday, but I'm back Sunday, and then I'm not traveling anymore, so I'll be here.
Question for town administrator. Ideally, when do you want this voted on? Yesterday?
No, I think it makes Gene's life easier now that it's after July 1st,
And it's not a Thursday?
and it's not a Thursday.
Yes.
I think we can get good enough detail to have an intelligent conversation about premium pay proposal at your next meeting, right? So hopefully you would have all 5 members, because while they're not here tonight, they have been here prior and heard the same conversation. We've been talking about premium pay for quite a long time. So I don't think there's anything surprising to anyone. We just now need to really write it up as a true financial proposal, right down to pennies, and present it to you as the cost, and have a sense from Gene and the treasurer's office, payroll office, how we would pay it out, what's the appropriate way.
Plus, you just received information that you can actually consider it
Well,
prior to whenever you found out about this, which I would assume was between the last meeting and now.
we've never stopped asking about this.
No, everybody's asking.
We just keep getting different answers.
Gene's got her hand up.
Yes, Gene.
My office is going to be extremely busy over the next 2 years because we're running 2 fiscal years at the same time finalizing. So I would ask for a little latitude just for that. I'd also want to have, going back to Tim's point, where I am exempt, so I would not be eligible. It does say state, local, and tribal government workforce as well as public health. And this building was, you have this building, that showed up to work, that were not working. Some were working remotely, most of us were here. I know there are other segments of the other departments, so, clarification on who you're including. But again, the next 2 weeks are going to be like a blur for me, so if there's anything that's going to be needed from my office, I'm going to politely decline for the next 2 weeks, because it is crazy.
Well, that's a fair point. I was rushing it at 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do a lot of work in the next 2 weeks, but I can't finish without Gene. So if we set this up for August, would that be better?
Gene?
August work better for you?
It's after the 2 weeks, I'll give you that. It's year-end audit. I'm busy until at least the beginning of October, so. But if I get through the next 2 weeks, at least we can put some time here. I have the auditors come in the 2nd and 3rd. Summer's slow for everybody else, not for me.
I'm sorry, Gene.
It's my life, but that's okay.
Just for an understanding. So because we're calling it premium pay now, not hazard pay, so it's just people that work during that period regardless of their exposure, or?
No, so
I think
it has to be essential work. Not, so it's specifically not performed while teleworking. That's not going to cut it. Involves either regular in-person interactions with the public or coworkers or regular physical handling of items handled by the public and coworkers.
All right, so there's guidelines in it. Yeah, okay.
The what?
Would building qualify because they were dealing with people that come in with the permits? Would Board of Health because they were doing testing? You have Patrice going out there, you have Justin doing delivering books. there's, I understand he's exempt, so he would not be doing it, but there was also a couple of the library staff that was also delivering. I think there's just, again, back to Tim's point, you have to look at it globally. I understand we, definitely not first responders. There's no,
Yep.
at some level, there was exposure.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand, because we switched from hazard to, hazard was pretty definitive, and then we went to premium, so that now it just, and you're bringing up good points. You're handling stuff that's brought in from the public, even though if it's not direct contact, it is indirect contact.
But I always take the point of conservative because,
You?
yeah, I know, shocking. The denial will come if they, change the rules. And, then the town will have to come up with, and I'm a big, just because someone else does it doesn't mean I want to do it, because they're taking a gamble that I just don't want to take. So,
I think at this point, though, if they reverse on this, there'll be a riot. So there's been these individual nitpicky things with CARES Act eligibility and some of the other things that we continue to disagree with them about. But if you take all of your major cities, and they go out and they outlay millions of dollars worth of ARPA funds that they're directly entitled to from the Treasury, by the way, they don't pass through the state. And then you turn around and say, well, we're going to disallow all this stuff. But what the heck is that about? That's absurd. So I think there is some comfort in numbers. But it's true that if we could size this to be something if we absolutely had to fall back because somebody had a pee under their mattress and decided they weren't going to allow it now, could we survive it? And I think that's a level of responsibility we have to have at the back of our minds.
So,
Yeah, 2.7 million turns into a $350,000 bill.
Right. Been there, done that. I mean, so every time we interact with FEMA,
So then what's the rush?
well, the only thing there is no rush. I mean, we've been saying that all
Except
along.
for the
It's just that,
depending on how long we have to use it.
Well, we got a year and a half
24.
still.
but some of these other things you might want to do may involve design and procurement and other processes that take us out. So we have to obligate it by 2024. I think we have to all implement it by 27 or 26. It doesn't sound like there's a rush, but,
Look at some of our past.
it's so easy. If that was the only thing that we had to do, then no, there wouldn't be a rush. But there's a whole bunch of other, we still have to do the budget, we still have to do town meeting, we still have to do all those. So we're trying to take into stride another $2.7 million budget with all the rules that go along with it.
Yeah, I'd just say the delay, with
Well, the other thing
other
is,
towns plotting the course and running into some of these.
I guess all I would say is if you were an employee who worked those hours, now you've already waited 2 years. Or may have had some hope that you would get premium pay for 2 years. At least a year, because that's when people started talking about it, and the state made their checks payable. So, I would prefer, Mr. Chairman, not to be in the position in 2024 trying to chase people down that worked for us in 2020.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Well, I think you determined that it's eligible, so we should look at it, evaluate it, and
That's your directive,
Decision on
that's
it,
what
that's
we'll
all.
do.
done.
And you think you can at least have that premium pay portion of it flushed out.
Well, hold on till August.
Yeah.
Our August meeting, being cognizant of Gene being straight out.
Most likely the second meeting in August, not the first. Which will lead up 2 weeks already.
All right, is there anything else on the ARPA discussions? I don't need to make any votes on it.
No.
Do we want to go back and discuss the transfer station fees that was supposed to be quick again?
If you want them.
Discuss cable renewal subcommittee and possible votes.
Good evening. So,
You have 3 hours.
all right. So, when I was born, our cable license expires next year in 2023. I've been working with the attorney for the cable, and one of the suggestions that he had was to have some sort of either a subcommittee that was formulated for the purposes of, overseeing the license negotiation, or he said in lieu of that, if we at least had some sort of resident liaison that would give the perspective from the town, from the resident side, because he has my perspective as a staff member, but he thinks it's pretty important to have someone on board who can sort of represent, the town's perspective in the whole matter. So I'm not quite sure on the protocol how to set that up or how to go forward with it, but
It's actually pretty common.
yeah.
When I was with Comcast, a lot of the municipalities had a subcommittee that would sit down and deal with all the licensing and franchise agreements, and then bring their recommendations up the board, whether to ratify or not ratify a contract.
We've had that committee before.
Yeah, I mean, we had the cable committee for a long time, and right before 2020, they went ad hoc, but it sort of dissolved. We had some folks move out of town, and so it
Last man standing.
yeah, last man standing. So, I'm just putting it out there that this was their idea. We're still working on all the documents. I don't really have any surprises planned for the program. I think we're pretty on a good track. I look at it as a mainly government transparency program. We're trying to record all the meetings and rebroadcast them so everyone can watch what's going on. We also have some funding that we can put towards, the public stuff, which is more of a hyper-local community awareness and culture, using it for the cultural aspects of the town, which we use generally to record events that happen, mainly, Oktoberfest or, the senior center used us quite a bit through the lockdown, putting up, at-home exercising programs and stuff for seniors. But I don't, we used to have plans to build up more of a production studio type scenario, and after weighing some of the pros and cons of that and expenses and maintenance and all that, it didn't seem something that the town had very much of a thirst for. So we kind of reversed course on some of that. Just trying to utilize what we have, mainly upgrading technology, staff costs, just to make sure we get everything. And there's not a whole lot of new things planned, except for, as technology changes. As far as I've been here, it's changed, 9 times already. Just the media that we record on, going from VHS to DVD to SD card to, so it's, with those kind of changes, we have to put some effort into that. But other than that, as far as the program is concerned, I don't have a lot of, big changes. So that's my spiel.
So you're looking for a volunteer or two to serve on that subcommittee that has Charter Spectrum as a...
Yeah, I guess that would be helpful, yeah, if they were actually a customer with that perspective.
I have a bias, I can't do it.
Yeah, no.
It's true.
You may be biased, but you no longer have an ethical prohibition.
Well,
Well, maybe the bias is a good bias.
could be a good bias. Well, I'm a resident, and would be more than happy to sit on a subcommittee for, I have some experience in cable licensing.
Make a motion that we create the cable renewal subcommittee and appoint Kevin Morse as the
Second.
first resident member.
That was a really fast second.
Move the question.
Shouldn't I have somebody that should like an alternate in the event of my...
Oh, no, this is just the beginning.
This is just the
Yeah,
beginning.
we got Hal and Kevin, I mean,
David, yeah, they didn't show up.
They sound
no,
like-
no, in all seriousness, though, you need a subcommittee and a member or two.
Sure, yeah. Yep.
We get halfway there.
All right, so the motion was made and expeditiously seconded.
Well, I didn't want to hold you up. I know the anticipation was getting you.
All right, any further discussion on that?
I would say that we put up on the cable looking for volunteers, however we do that.
If Mr. Fontaine wants to.
volunteer.
Oh,
Oh, look at that.
all right.
We already got one.
No, I need it, more the merrier.
Do we have like a limit or
No, I mean, actually,
just however many?
that might be enough, the three
Right.
of you with an attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the attorneys enough.
Kevin's enough.
Thanks again.
Oh, no problem, bud.
All right then.
I mean, deep in the bowels of some dungeon somewhere, there's a cable licensing attorney who just sits there and talks, and everybody just goes mad.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to be any part of this.
86th floor. That's what they said. The 86th floor.
Right next to the actuaries, right? And another scintillating.
Did you get Fred's name? Fred Fontaine? Yeah.
All right.
And Fred chaired the cable committee previously, so he's, and he's been on it since I've been here, so.
All right. Good.
All right.
Any further discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. All right.
All right, thank you.
up?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Second review of development agreement with CRG and possible vote.
Ed, did you get anything?
Nothing new other than...
So we got a red line copy back from CRG, which was cleanup and was not terribly new or different, but we're still going back and forth about the gas provision. Did they clean it up?
That's clear now.
It is?
Yep. And your class truck was clear too.
Yeah, class 7. Well, you want to talk about the gas? What does it say now?
The Eversource did a new study for the cost of the gas line coming into Douglas for the 9,000 feet. And the new cost is $3 million. The old cost was 3.7. We still have an active $700,000 MassWorks grant to be applied. Eversource is still contributing $1.9 million over their 25-year payback schedule. That now leaves a shortage of $430,526, which is what CRG is picking up. They previously committed to $1.1 million to help us bring gas in, but they've been reduced to $430,000, round numbers. So that is now in the developer agreement, those numbers to the dollar.
So, to say exactly the same thing, slightly differently, it's a $3 million project. The revenue generated by the new customers that would tap into the line and be used to retire the cost of the project is scored at 1.9. So 3 minus 1.9 leaves a subsidy of 1.1. That has to come from somewhere. But MassWorks gave us $700,000 in addition to our prior grant, specifically for gas. We really can't use it for anything else. CRG is going to pick up the entire remainder, or at least be exposed by this agreement to pick up the entire remainder,
That is correct.
because Skinnell's all set on their side in Uxbridge. So this is just bringing the service not only to their location, but all the way down Gilboa Street and up north to Main.
North to Main.
So it'll terminate at Main Street for future. So that's that part of the document that was ironed out and settled. The rest of the conversation we've had, the document has not changed at all. What will trigger the traffic study, we wanted to be more specific because the planning board had simply said trailer trucks. So we're setting the thresholds that trigger the need for action at a 25% increase in truck traffic defined as Class 7 or higher. So Class 7 is not the biggest trailer truck you'll see on the road, but it is big enough to cause traffic. You'll sense the presence of a lot of Class 7 trucks if they were around. So the number did change there. They were originally, it seemed as if they were pledging 250 for this, 250 for that. Their entire exposure is 500,000. But that's still a big chunk of change. If we needed to make traffic improvements downtown, and we had CRG on the hook for 500,000 because they were generating that traffic, that's a pretty significant. First of all, it's an incentive for them not to have that happen, which is really important. But then it's also a way to address the problem should it arise. So we feel like that part of the agreement is protecting the town. All the rest of it, we've already been over. We went through this point by point last time.
This is the same agreement as the last time.
Yeah.
It appeared to be, that's what I'm just curious.
Well, that's easy.
So now that you've had a chance to look at it, I still would recommend that the board sign it. But if you could give your tentative approval tonight, we can tidy it up and have it pretty for July 29th, in which case you can take your final vote and sign it. That gives them enough to go on, right? The 19th?
Yes.
This is the calendar. July 29th being the last day of Friday,
19th.
19th being our next meeting.
That's your next meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just so that everyone watching at home, I know the audience, I mean, this is like a Nielsen, 4 or something, amazing audience.
We probably could have got those numbers from Pat.
I know, but it's the Nielsen ratings. A lot of this project is now coming down to this July 21st, 22nd. At that point, the appeals period for the approvals that were achieved over the last week and a half by the Planning Board and Conservation Commission will be over. Once those appeals are done, appeal periods are closed, and hopefully, knock on wood, there's no further process required. At that point, the land closings and changing of hands of deeds would occur. And what we would end up with after all is said and done is that a Douglas business that's been here for a very long time will relocate to another place in Douglas and continue to operate in Douglas. A new business will come in and build the building where they used to be. And all of that accrues to the benefit of the town in form of new growth and future property taxes, with no incentives provided whatsoever from the town and all kinds of grant support from the state and federal government. So it's a pretty good deal in the grand scheme of things. But it is now, this is it. This is time. So they won't sign a closing with you until they get the development agreement signed. But since you're meeting before the appeal period ends, you don't have to do it, immediately tonight. So if you have one more 2-week period to cogitate over the agreement if you want.
We're gonna rock that boat. Well, I'll just tell you the story. I was driving down Gilboa with my wife, and I had a big smile on my face, and nothing really particularly happened. Although she said, "What are you smiling?" I said, "The only thing I could think of was these, along the sides of the sidewalk, and it's been a long time coming. I think it's really exciting stuff."
And you don't see those pipes anymore.
That went quick.
They're buried.
Yeah, that was easy.
Well, Bob did manage to get me my own little driving lane for my motorcycle,
Okay.
if you notice that.
Yeah.
Paved area that's nice and smooth, the only section of the street.
That's not a temporary patch, that's a road improvement.
Yeah, right. Amen.
It is nice when you get that section.
Yeah.
But it has been fun to drive by there and see the work being done and pipe being hidden. It's nice.
And once we do the sewer, the other side will be done.
I'd like to make a motion to have the town administrator finalize that document for our signing on July 19th.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Through the chair, I have one quick question. Does it matter who signs it first, the board or CRG?
Don't think so.
chicken or the egg?
What I'm getting at is if we can finalize it and send it to
Have them sign
CFG,
it.
have them sign it, so when you sign it, it's done by the 19th. July 22nd is what we're looking for to close everything,
That
all
sounds
property deeds.
Yeah,
Is that good?
sounds fine.
Yeah, works for me.
So I'll work with you on that one.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
And maybe would they want to be here for that?
What's that?
Would they want to be here as we discuss and sign that agreement?
They're going to have to be here for the closing.
Just an idea.
Yeah,
Have to be.
and we have the P&S we're still working on, too.
All right, so we want
I'll
to
ask.
review and ratify Eversource filing for natural gas franchise with DPU and possible votes.
So the long and the short of it is, we just talked about the analysis that Eversource did to show the economic rationale and how they're going to fund their project. What they need from people is an application for natural gas. So that's what they take to the DPU, and they say, see, we can pay for this project because we have these applications for service from people who are going to contribute X amount to the project. In this case, the superintendent, or, oh gosh, I always forget his title, Bob Sullivan over at Water and Wastewater, I think it says on here, general manager. He specified the usage at his plants, but then the money that we pledged, you see up here, I hereby agree to pay, it's way up here in the top left, $700,000. That's not the cost of the natural gas service for his facilities. That is the grant from MassWorks. But this document is our pledge of that grant money to the cost of the project, which I signed and dated because I had to, because the filing at DPU was coming up and what needed to get done. But in a little bit of cart before the horse, that I did that, but I'm looking for your support on that. I took the proper action and that you support it, because the DPU process is just beginning. So having the Board of Selectmen on record as supporting the application is still, in my mind, just as necessary as it would have been if we had reversed the order of operations.
It seems like just a formality. I have no issue with it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even tread into that water and trust Matt's judgment.
You have our support, sir.
Could you
Need to
vote it?
vote on it?
Yeah, please.
Make a motion to support his decision to sign the application dated 6/22/22.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You have our support, sir, formally. Second review and discussion of goals for the town. Do we want to go over this, or we want to pass over for a full board, or what do we want to do?
Well, in light of the recent email from Mr. Davis, maybe you want to pass over it and wait and have his input?
Works for me. Everybody good with passing over it? Well, we have to do something on this one, don't we? Open meeting law, remote participation. Or can we field that with the next meeting? When's the expiration?
No, it's...
I think it expired on the 1st.
Expired on the
Expired.
first.
Yep.
July 15th.
So,
Yeah.
oh, the 15th?
Yeah, the 15th.
10 days.
I would look to some input from town administrator, not to put him on the spot, but do you see any need to continue with that?
I think we've all learned somewhat over the last 2 years about this. The platforms have gotten more slick. We can actually see and hear people. People still have to remember to unmute themselves, myself included. Or remember that the camera is angled so that that spot you didn't comb quite right is front and center. But having said that, I think you have a couple of boards that are really gotten used to this and really are, I don't want to say thriving on it, but they're getting better participation, not necessarily from their membership, but from the people that appear before them with applications, being able to share a screen. I know the feeling on this board for a long time was really didn't want to go to remote meetings at all, but once you did, it applies to all the boards and commissions of the whole town. So it's really a big light switch, it's either on or off. I think the last time this was discussed by the select board, you had done a little bit of a informal poll of some of the boards and commissions. I think probably the planning board felt most strongly that it wanted to continue with this. So your other elected board. I think the one thing that still gives us all pause is whether or not we are enabling people who spend really long periods of time away from town to continue to serve as a full-blown member of a very responsible board, even though they're no longer here as year-round residents. And that is a problem. Is this the only way to skin the cat, though? In other words, is that a separate issue from the accessibility of a meeting being on a remote platform, allowing people to communicate from a distance?
I believe it's a separate issue.
Yeah, I think you can address that part with policy that's around behind it. It's a matter of what we're looking at broad spectrum. Is remote participation been helpful or not?
Where I like it is town council's accessibility through it. We're more apt to get them at meetings with remote than we would be if it has to be in person at everyone.
I can say from the industry side is that as much bad that came from COVID, with people getting sick and things like that, remote participation to public meetings, teleworking, work from home, things like that, opened up a whole new world and value to where you're seeing that people are actually participating more. They are actually more productive. And they're able to do it without having to commute into an office.
Yeah, from a work standpoint, but for public government, it's a little different, I think.
John Fontaine, Charles Street. I just wanted to, I know from the perspective of the library trustees that it's better we're able to have a forum more often when people are on vacation or what have you. They're just, it tends to be an older group and it's easier to, it's more likely to get someone to participate and volunteer their time.
To get it so you don't have members that are just 100% remote all the time, you put a policy in.
I think that it should be, because you shouldn't be able to participate for 6 months on end, every single meeting remote.
But I think what's before us now is, do we turn off the ability for these people to do this? Or do we keep it going, and then in a subsequent meeting start building policy around it? Because I think this is the way that everything is going.
Yeah, I used to be in person, and I am completely cool with remote meetings at this point. To answer the question about if someone's too distant, we can solve that every year when we reappoint our boards and commissions. And to Don's point, people like it. I think if we were to rescind that, we'd get a couple boards to weigh in and we'd be revisiting it again.
Maybe a happy medium suggestion would be to continue the remote participation for 60 to 90 days, and in the meantime come up with some sort of policy that addresses the concerns that we have, or that are out there, not necessarily we.
That works. I'm amenable to any one of those things, but I know it requires a motion and action from us this evening.
Yeah, you want to kick it 90 days, we'll kick it 90 days.
Well, it gives us time to come up with a policy that addresses.
So the motion is to allow the remote participation policy for an additional 90 days, pending development of a policy.
Yeah, we come up
But what's
with
your
some.
policy going to say that's going to be anything more than a big on switch.
Yeah, I think the first part is, well, 90 days from now, it's if we can't come up with a policy, it's an off switch, I guess.
Well, all right.
Well, there's
We'll
no,
vote then.
there's no answers tonight, so it's an option to at least address it, so.
Yeah. It's good.
So anybody want to second the motion that's out there?
Did I make the motion, or?
I kind of rattled off a motion, so. Why doesn't somebody make a motion? Because I suck at this.
Make a motion to continue it for 90 days with the thought of coming up with a policy to address any excessive remote use of the,
Say flagrant abuse. I like that.
then you make the motion.
No, I'm kidding.
I'll second it to move things
See, it's
forward.
easier to be the armchair quarterback than to make the motion.
That's right, it is. The motion's been
Sit in my
made.
seat at the end of every meeting.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we want to pass over 10 until we have a full board?
I don't even remember why this is on here. It's been passed over so many times.
Because
I think it's been passed over so many times.
Is this the
it's
third
obsolete.
reading? Is this the third reading that was never done?
Probably like the, more than that reading. Yeah,
Right, that's what
Well,
happened.
this
is you
has
had a-
been reviewed by Rich Bowen and
Yeah.
everything, so.
and I just added the, with the signature line and stuff like that.
Why don't we approve the revised code of conduct for boards, commissions, and committees?
Awesome idea.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the revised code of conducts for boards, commissions, and committees.
Oh, this is the one with the 10 o'clock thing.
10 o'clock and the social media policy. It's referenced in here. I don't know how long that policy is, but I wonder if that should be included in
Which one was it?
number, hold on. Number 9, the new number 9.
This was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
September 2021.
Well, did we put that, I think we put that in because of a particular incident.
Which one?
Number 9,
The, remember him?
social media.
Yeah,
Yes.
It was
What committee was he on?
economic development.
Yeah, we'll call it the EDC incident. Social media.
Yeah.
I was trying to get it finalized too with appointments.
I think I made a
coming up
motion.
to
Anybody want a
make
second?
Packets that we were trying to
I'll
do.
second it.
All right, good. Any further discussion? No. Oh, that's your line, yeah.
Well, just some clarification on the social media policy. Can we add that?
What did you want it
Isn't
to
it
say?
a-
Well, it's one thing to have someone sign something, but if they don't know what the social media policy is, it's kind of a silly moot point.
Comply with the town of Douglas social media policy as amended from time to time. And I'm assuming our social media policy is available on the town website.
And the policies and procedures of the town of Douglas is part of it.
All right. If it's accessible.
Okay, I'll make sure it's there.
I'm so well behaved, I don't need to know that policy. Nor am I on social media.
Oh, no, I didn't look at you, Kevin. Don't worry about it.
Not touching it. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. We are going to pass over 11, I'm assuming. Annual appointments.
Do we need to pass over number 11?
The wheels of government need to move.
Yeah. Is there, I don't think there is any need. I don't think we have any alternate candidates that are in there.
No. You heard from just about everybody, correct?
The one person I have not heard from, and he's highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
on your packet.
Yep. And the one that's highlighted in, that's a ZBA appointment. And we haven't had any correspondence back from them, from that member. through the ZBA, so I'm going to assume he no longer wishes to be on ZBA.
Everybody else has responded.
Do you care to make a motion on this?
Make a motion to approve the appointments as presented.
With the exception of everyone in yellow?
No, there's only one in yellow, correct?
Yeah.
I don't think we would reappoint that position. There's been no indication whether or not I want to continue on. I would like to thank the person for his participation on the board, and if he chooses to reapply at a later date, then do it.
Great. Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, approve minutes and possible votes.
Make a motion, I have maybe I messed this up. May 17, 2022 executive session minutes as first. Make a motion that we approve those retaining all.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Next one in my packet is the June 7 meeting minutes. Make a motion, oh, go ahead, Kevin. I'll make a motion that we approve the meetings minutes, June 7.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Well, this is the executive session for the 7th, right?
Yes. Make a motion that we approve the June 7 executive session minutes, retaining all.
Second.
All right, made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Your report, Mr. Administrator.
In the interest of brevity, on July 10th, this Sunday in the afternoon, we will hopefully have one night of night work at North and Main as work is done in connection with the water infrastructure project. The road will be closed overnight. Trying to do all of their saw cuts and everything else during daylight hours so they're not interrupting people overnight. That's not a promise, that's a goal, an aspiration. We hope the digging is easy and the cutting is easy and they'll wrap up. That was a better alternative than trying to do it during the daytime and stretching it out over a couple of days, just because of traffic and having to stop and move plates and do all, they're gonna just do it at night, open up the whole road and see if they can get it all done. So there'll be plenty of messaging around town over the next few days. The crew is off this week. It was just a matter of a short week because of the holiday. We're waiting for some valves to arrive. Needed the extra week to get them in. So the crew is just not working at all this week until Sunday, okay? As referenced earlier, there's a purchase and sales agreement on town land that was sold through the proper process over a year ago. There's a small remaining National Grid easement. There used to be a substation in that neighborhood. The substation is long since gone, but the easements remain in the deeds. So to extinguish those easements, we need National Grid's cooperation. The vast majority of the easements already been dissolved by private conversation between the intermediary buyer and Grid, but they didn't deal with the town land, which is all of 243 feet long, completely orphaned, doesn't go anywhere, doesn't come from anywhere. That's going to have to be resolved, but not really seeing that as a major obstacle, but that's why we're not ready to sign tomorrow, is because that has to be dealt with. We released a bid today on the day tank and associated mechanical systems in the basement here for the heating system. So that'll be out for a little over 3 weeks. There's a pre-bid conference on July 12th here at 10 a.m. for interested plumbing contractors to come and look at the job and give us a bid. We're estimating it'll be around $55,000. This is part of the final recovery of the spill downstairs. And most of what I've been working on is what you've been talking about tonight, but I do want to bring up a quick update on the health insurance buying group. As you know, as of July 1st, we are now 8 members strong. We were only 3, so we've added several members. Actually, I think we're 7 members strong now, but we know there'll be an 8th soon enough. But we have 4 new towns. And prior to accepting their membership and making them part of the board of directors and all the rest of it, the existing 3 municipal entities reviewed the equity that we have in the trust fund, and we voted as a board to lock in the values of the trust fund. So the allocation rules that would be used for dissolution of the group after July 1st will only incorporate the new members of the group effective July 1st. They will not have any claim to the accrued trust fund that we have as of June 30. It ended up being extremely important for the town of Douglas. We all bought into this early on with the idea that if a member had difficulty in one given year, that the other members could vote to use the trust fund to support that member through a difficult financial year. As it turns out, all 3 municipal partners have run a surplus, an accrued surplus, over the last 3 years. Since we had no basis when we started for allocating the trust fund, we used a simple rule, which was we would allocate the trust fund according to your share of the working rate. So the smaller group paid a smaller amount, call it premium for the sake of conversation, even though it's not accurate, but premium. So we were 17% of the premium. If we dissolved tomorrow, we'd get 17% of the trust fund. Well, in actual experience, after 3 full years in the group, the accumulated trust is a little over $3 million. But Douglas has had better years than the other 2 entities. So Webster's had 2 tough years. Dudley Charlton's had 1 tough year where they needed to massage their rates to be able to stay liquid. But they accrued a surplus in total over the last 3 years. Long story short, the town of Douglas's accrued trust fund equity in the health insurance buying group is over $1 million. Now, we will recommend leaving about 12% of our annual cost in the trust fund, because if we have a bad year, we have an overrun, those trust fund monies would be there to smooth out our rates so we don't fall off the edge of a cliff, right? So we would use that. But funds in excess of that need to be put to use. By our bylaws, the town of Douglas has to withdraw that equity. Cannot leave it there. The idea is, when these groups get political, what happens is politicians, no offense, but this Swansea is the poster child for this, town of Swansea. I don't want to balance the budget every year. I don't want to pay any more for health insurance. So just give us a 0. Just give us a 0. And they do this for like 10 years in a row, 10 years of zeros. And then they run out of, it's kind of like the transfer station, right? They run out of retained earnings. And now in Swansea's case, the health insurer came through and said, you're not liquid. And this is what it's going to cost you. And they crushed the town. They used all their free cash. They had to do all kinds of crazy stuff to get back to health. We attempted to forestall that or prevent that from ever happening by requiring the members to not maintain any more than 12% of their annual cost in the trust fund. So the decision point will eventually come to you, and this is your heads up, that once June is closed, once we have all the claims experience for June and we finally close the trust fund balance, we'll know the precise number that you're dealing with. It will need to go somewhere. And the initial recommendation I think that Gene and I would have is that we participate in the rate stabilization initiative from the group. So then it's a completely separate fund. You can put it into rate stabilization, and rate stabilization is almost like a bank. So you can exhaust your own equity and then still have, the group can still rescue you, but you have to buy into that. But the rest would go to OPEB, because the town's unfunded liability is well north of $14 million. We have about $1 million in the OPEB account to offset that unfunded liability. But this is one way to really boost that. The benefit to the town is that it will reduces future budget pressure for retiree health costs. It also improves your balance sheet, so your credit rating, if you had to borrow to build a building or to do major road projects, you would enjoy lower interest rates because you're more financially sound. When the time comes, we can have a more detailed conversation. I thought I'd at least bring it up to you now because it was timely, and we will shortly reorganize this group with the 4 new members. So see where that takes us. But that's, in this world that we live in, unheard of, that a group has been able to accrue millions of dollars in unrestricted balance after just 3 years of operation. So I think it's proof of concept.
Yeah. Right, did you write a white paper on that yet?
I'm angling for an ICMA award someday. I'm going to go to the national conference and stroll up to the podium.
No, you should.
But let's just hope it continues to work out the way it has.
So when you were saying that, I was thinking OPEB, but I wonder if there's a health insurance escrow fund or something that we could create that might be a little piggy bank that we could grab if we really have a bad year or two.
Or forestall or prevent bad years from happening. We are going to end up voting on this as a group in the next year or so, but I've been pushing very hard for what, it's technically not a captive, it's a slightly different legal term, but a captive is shared risk pool that is self-funded by the self-insured entities so that you don't have to hit your reinsurance, your stop loss. So right now, any health insurance claim that comes in for a Douglas beneficiary that's over $150,000 is not paid by the fund. It's paid by an insurance company because we bought that insurance for major claims. If you can push that attachment point to a higher number, 200,000, 250,000, your premium goes way down.
It's like any insurance,
It
raise your
becomes-
deductible and
It's less premium. How do you fund the 150 to 250? Through another trust fund, right? Another restricted account that says from 150 to 250, we will use the pooled funds of the member groups to cover that. So you're no longer paying premium to cover it. The trick there is then to be very careful about who you admit to the group. Because if you pull claims experience, this whole thing is fascinating. You can geek out on it all night, and I won't trouble you with it. But people who hit the attachment point for reinsurance more than 2 years in a row tend to hit it every year. So if you have a major claimant that costs you 150 grand a couple of years in a row, chances are that person's just going to keep, because it's either their therapy or their pharmaceuticals or they're just their health condition. Until they term out, they're going to, or retire, they're going to be that much of an expense. So when you accept a new group, you look at that reinsurance experience and you say, oh my gosh, you have 10 people who are over 150 every year. Sorry. You might want to go with somebody else, not us, because that's just going to take away from what you're trying to do with the captive. But it's, it's a really exciting and interesting thing to do to disrupt the industry, and they're not really liking us much for doing it, but the principles that are around the original concept of insurance are still valid. It's just that a lot of people who write paper don't follow those principles anymore. And we got to get back to brass tacks, because there's no reason for it to cost as much as it does, or to, in some cases, lose the money that it does. Really no reason for it. So, that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any open session topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of this meeting? Seeing as none. One of your motions, Mr. Bowman?
You want one?
I do.
All right, I'll make a motion that we move into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining and litigation, and then to leave executive session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Bone and I.
Morse, aye.